in the last episode we got this into its primer coats, and that actually went really well. The Nitrolac primer that I used on it sprayed on beautifully, and I'm very happy with the results I've got. However, there is still a little bit of work to do on it because the finish out of the gun isn't as good as I'd like it before I start to get some paint on it, because obviously whatever is underneath the very thin film of paint that we're going to put on will show up, so we can't really have any inconsistencies or defects in this primer. In essence, the better the primer is, the less work we'll have to do with the top coat, and for me that's the ideal situation. So essentially, to get this where we need it, it's going to be a case of just having a look around it, and any kind of major defects we'll take out with some 240 grit, and once that's done we'll go over with some 400. So I'm going to start on the back purely because it's a bigger surface area, and we'll just start working our way through and refining this surface till we've got something that's suitable for spraying. Also, talking about last time, I was very happy with the feedback I got about my colour choice. Seems to have gone down very well. The seafoam green has been well received, which makes me very happy. So this has all been rubbed down now to 400 grit, and it is feeling a lot smoother. There was some kind of very minor orange peel that's been taken out, and one or two little imperfections that manifested themselves. You might be able to see on this corner, it's kind of almost broken through to the wood again. If I was being really pedantic, I would kind of spray a little bit more primer over there, but to be honest, that tiny little bit on the radius isn't going to really make a lot of difference. It will still be sealed, and it still feels as smooth as it needs to. So with that done, I'm going to get rid of the 400. Now normally I would go to about 600 or 800 for rubbing primer down, but I actually want to use some of this 1000 grade flex sanding sheet that was sent to me, just to see how that works. And then it's a little bit finer than I would normally go, but realistically from 800 it's kind of one grade of paper, so I'm pretty sure it'll be absolutely fine. So from here it's just a case of giving this a quick rub over with the 1000 grit. It really won't take much at all. And this will be especially good on these radii, because it will enable me to smooth them off, but without taking too much material, so we're kind of lessening the risk of going through. So that is now pretty much all flatted down. I've taken kind of all the sharp edges off everything and just made it really nice and smooth. All of the kind of contours and the radiuses now are kind of blended in really nicely. There's no notchiness to them. So we're pretty much good to go now and to get this back to the spray booth for some colour coats. However, before I do that, I just want to take this opportunity to check and see how we're doing with the neck fit, because the last thing I want to be doing is banging an absolute shed load of paint into this neck pocket and making it so that the neck doesn't fit in. So we'll just do a check, and I think we're pretty good at that. Obviously we've got the colour coats to go in there yet, and we've got the lacquer to put on the neck, so I think by the time we've done those two things, this is going to be a really nice fit in there. So with that ascertained, we can think about getting this set up and back to the spray booth. Okay, so that's the body all cleaned off and set back up on its stand. I've given it a good blow off with the airline to get the dust off it, and to also make sure that there's no dust or crap or anything hidden in these screw holes. I'm pretty confident it's clean enough, so we'll nip over to the mixing table, get some paint mixed up, and we're ready to go. And in the first instance, I'm not really going to kind of thin this paint down too much. My preferred technique is to lay down some pretty thick base coats and then make the paint progressively thinner as you work your way through the coats. The beauty of nitro is that each subsequent coat will kind of meld itself into the coats below, and as you get thinner and thinner coats, that's when you start to build up a really nice gloss out of the gun. However, I fully anticipate that we're going to be kind of rubbing this down, polishing it with various grades of wet and dry paper and then some polishing compounds, so the necessity to get it super shiny out of the gun isn't really there. Obviously the shinier it is, the less work we have to do with the paper. Right, bash this in the gun, get masked up and get spraying. Okay, so there's the first couple of coats on, and I have to say I'm very happy with that. That is one of the nicest out of the gun finishes I've ever managed to get. So far so good. I still need to put a few more coats on, and I'm quite reluctant to do it, if I'm honest, because it's looking so nice, but it does need a bit more paint on. We need to build that surface layer up a little bit before we can do anything else with it. So I'm going to give this half an hour or so to cure up a little bit, and then I'll lay down maybe another 3 or 4 coats onto there. But so far, so good. Okay, so I've actually given this about an hour in the end. So this has dried up quite nicely now, and I've been over it and I can't feel any inclusions or any lumps or bumps or anything, so I haven't even kind of given this a nibbing off. And this paint has gone on beautifully. There's a little bit of orange peel on the back, but the front, where I've kind of put quite a nice thick coat on, has settled down into a nice glossy sheen. So I'm kind of hoping that there won't be a huge amount of rubbing down and finishing to do on this one. I'm going to give it about another 2 or 3 coats, and I'm going to start thinning them down a little bit. So the next coat will be a little bit thinner, and then I'll add just a little bit more solvent for each subsequent coat, and hopefully that shouldn't lay down nice and flat and shiny. But to be honest, I don't think it's going to need a huge amount more. Okay, so it's the morning after, and this has had a good few hours to dry up a little bit. It's by no means dry enough to do anything with effectively, but it isn't soft anymore. That's the main thing. It's going to have to live on the paint stick for a few days before I can do anything with it. But I am very, very happy with how this has come out. I think it's partly a function of all the work we did to get the primer as nice as we did, but I also think it's a testament to how good this paint is. It covers beautifully, it lays down really nice and flat, and there isn't really going to have to be a huge amount of work done to this in the polishing stage. There's some kind of very light orange peel, and if I can find it, there's a little bit of a run down here. That is purely my spraying technique or lack thereof that has caused that. It's not a problem. I tend to find with nitro, if you get a little bit of a run like this, the best thing you can do is just leave it for a little while. There's still a lot of solvent in this paint, and as that solvent evaporates, that run will become smaller and smaller. So when it's finally time to kind of blend that in, rub it down, there's actually a lot less work to do because most of it's already gone. I ended up giving this about 7 coats of paint, so it's got quite a lot on there. I'm not going to over lacquer it, I'm just going to leave this as it is. Realistically, I would like to give this about a month before I polish it up. Obviously my filming schedule doesn't allow for that, so I'm going to probably give this a week and we'll work on the neck, get that a little bit further along, and then hopefully, it is summer, it is a little bit warmer, so hopefully after a week this will be somewhere near ready for polishing up. It's not ideal, but I think it's a pretty good compromise. The other issue I've got with this, and you might have noticed it already, is depending on which camera I'm using, this looks a completely different colour. I would say in this shot at least, the camera you're looking at now is giving the best representation of the colour. However, in the spray booth, this camera that you're looking at now gave the best representation, and it's totally switched around now that we've got it up the other end of the workshop. Either way, I'm really happy with the colour, and if I very, very gently drop the pick guard in place, I think that looks absolutely brilliant. I'm very, very happy with the outcome. There is, however, one thing that has occurred to me on this process, and it's been mentioned by a couple of people as well in the comments, and that this paint stick just really isn't up to the job anymore. It kind of works, but it's clunky and it's not really effective. And I think to a certain extent, the run that I got was due to the fact that I was in a compromised spraying position. I will put that out as my defence. And I think if I had a better means of doing this, we wouldn't have had the issue. So I'm going to go away now and think about how I can make myself one of those snazzy paint carousel type rotisserie jobs that you quite often see people using. I've seen them made out of kind of like black iron pipe that is quite common in the US. That isn't really a thing in the UK, but I'm thinking potentially could I make one out of copper plumbing pipe? Potentially? I don't know. I don't know if it would be strong enough, but that's something I can look into. It would be a fairly easy job to solder one together, but that will be something for the future. I'm going to leave this one here, so as always, don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so. Don't forget to check out the Nitro Lac website for all your finishing supplies, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.